family forgot to book my flight to my sister's Hawaii wedding. I was left out. I said, that happens. Then disappeared for a year. You know that feeling? The one where you realize you've been so utterly, completely overlooked that it stings worse than any outright insult. Well, for me, that feeling hit like a punch to the gut on a Tuesday afternoon. Sitting in my Denver apartment, a forgotten cup of coffee growing cold in my hands. I had been excluded from my own sister's wedding. Can you even imagine? My phone rang, pulling me away from the quarterly reports for the pharmaceutical company I worked for. My mom's name flashed across the screen. "Samantha, honey," she said, her voice laced with that specific artificial sweetness she used when delivering news she desperately wanted you to believe wasn't actually bad. "We need to talk about Jessica's wedding." "What about it?" I asked, putting down my pen, a knot already forming in my stomach. I'd requested the time off months ago. "It's in 3 weeks, right? Everything's all set." Then came the pause, a long, agonizing silence that felt like forever. It was the kind of pause that makes your heart sink before a single word is even spoken. "Well, sweetheart," she finally began, "that's the thing. Your father and I were handling all the travel arrangements, and somehow we forgot to book your plane ticket and your hotel room. We just realized it yesterday, and now all the flights are completely booked. The hotel, too. It's peak season in Maui, apparently." I just stared at the wall, at a photo from last Christmas. All of us together, smiling. Jessica had her arm around me. We were sisters. We were supposed to be close. "You forgot." I repeated, my voice flat, almost a whisper. "These things happen, sweetheart," Mom rushed on, clearly uncomfortable. "We've been so busy with the planning, so many details. Jessica is devastated, of course, but she understands. We'll take lots of photos for you." 27 years. That's how long I'd spent being the forgettable one. The middle child who never quite measured up to Jessica, the golden daughter, the successful architect. Or my younger brother, Danny, the charming entrepreneur everyone adored. I was just Samantha, reliable, quiet, so easy to overlook. "That happens," I said again, my voice devoid of any emotion, because what else was there to say? "Oh, I'm so glad you understand," she gushed, clearly relieved. "Your sister was worried you'd be upset. You know how sensitive she gets before big events. I'll send you photos, I promise." And then she hung up. I sat there for an hour, the cold coffee a mirror to my own numbness. Then something shifted, a spark deep inside, not of anger, not yet, but of a cold, hard determination. I opened my laptop and started researching. Not flights to Hawaii. Something else entirely. The next day, I asked my supervisor, Patricia, for a meeting. She looked genuinely surprised when I told her I wanted to take a leave of absence. "A year?" she asked, her eyebrows shooting up. "That's quite unusual. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I replied, holding her gaze. "I have some personal projects I want to pursue. I've been here 6 years, and I think I need a break to figure out my next steps." Patricia studied me. I'd always been her most reliable analyst, the one who stayed late, the one who never complained, who fixed problems quietly without drama. "You have plenty of vacation time saved up," she said finally, a small smile playing on her lips. "And honestly, Samantha, you deserve it. You've been carrying this department for years. If you need a sabbatical, take it. Your position will be here when you get back." I thanked her and walked out feeling lighter than I had in months. That evening, I sent a message to the family group chat. "Hey everyone, not going to make the wedding, but I hope it's beautiful. Taking some time for myself. Going to be offline for a while. Love you all." Jessica responded immediately. "Wait, what? Where are you going?" I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off my phone. Over the next week, I sold most of my furniture, put my car in storage, and rented out my apartment. I kept only what fit in 2 suitcases and a backpack. My family tried calling, but I let everything go to voicemail. Jessica left increasingly frantic messages. Sam, this is weird. Where are you going? Are you okay? Please call me back. Danny texted, Dude, what is going on? Mom is freaking out. I didn't respond to any of them. The day before Jessica's wedding, I boarded a plane. Not to Hawaii, to Tokyo. I'd always wanted to see Japan, and I'd been quietly saving money for years. What I hadn't told anyone was exactly how much I'd saved. My grandma, the only one who truly remembered my birthday every year, had left me a small inheritance, a trust that kicked in on my 25th birthday with a letter that said, Samantha, you have always been the one who thinks before acting, who plans quietly while others make noise. Use this wisely. Make yourself proud. I'd invested most of it, watched it grow. Now, I was using it exactly as she'd intended. As the plane took off, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, freedom. For 3 weeks, I stayed in hostels and budget hotels, ate street food, visited temples. I took a calligraphy class in Kyoto and learned to make soba noodles from an elderly woman in Osaka. From Tokyo, I went to Seoul, then Bangkok. I sent no photos, no updates. I existed in a bubble of anonymity, just another traveler with a backpack and a journal. In Chiang Mai, I took a 6-week course in digital marketing. I discovered I had a real talent for understanding online business strategies. Meanwhile, according to the sparse information I gathered from my turned-off phone when I checked it once every 2 weeks at internet cafes, my family was losing their minds. Jessica's wedding had happened, a beautiful, white sand, sunset ceremony, according to the single social media login I risked. Everyone looked happy in the photos. No one seemed to miss me at all in the pictures. But my inbox told a different story. 47 emails from my mother, 32 from Jessica, 20-something from Danny. Even my father, who never used email, had sent 3. Subject lines ranged from "Where are you?" to "Please call us" to "This is not funny anymore" to "We are worried sick." I read none of them. Not yet. In Vietnam, I met Helen, an Australian woman who ran a small export business connecting Vietnamese artisans with international buyers. The thing about disappearing, she told me over coffee in Hanoi, is that you find out who you actually are when nobody is watching. What did you find out? I asked. She grinned. That I'm much more interesting than my family ever gave me credit for. We became friends. She taught me the basics of international trade. My background in pharmaceutical distribution surprisingly translated well. We started collaborating on a project, helping ceramic artists reach European markets. It was supposed to be just a learning experience. It turned into something more. By month 4, I'd helped facilitate 3 successful shipments and earned my first independent commission. It wasn't much, barely enough to cover a week of expenses, but it was mine. Money I had earned through my own initiative, not by showing up dutifully to a job where I was appreciated but never celebrated. Helen looked at the numbers and whistled. You have a gift for this. Ever think about doing it full time? Maybe, I said. I moved through Southeast Asia like a ghost. Cambodia, Laos, back to Thailand. I learned to haggle, to spot quality craftsmanship, to understand cross-cultural business relationships. I took online courses in international trade law and logistics. I worked with other digital nomads and small business owners. And slowly, carefully, I built something. By month 6, I was running my own small consulting operation. I used my pharmaceutical supply chain background to optimize shipping routes and negotiate better rates. I was good at it, really good. The money started flowing more steadily, not a fortune, but enough to sustain my travels and start saving again. More importantly, I was learning and growing in ways I never had back home, where I was always just reliable Samantha, the one who never caused problems or made waves. I kept my phone off, except for those brief, bi-weekly check-ins. The messages from my family had evolved. Anger had shifted to concern, then to guilt. Mom, sweetheart, we know we hurt you. Please just let us know you're alive. Jessica, I'm so sorry about the wedding. I should have checked the arrangements myself. Please, Sam, talk to me. Danny, everyone is really worried. Dad hasn't been sleeping. Just send a sign that you're okay. On month 7, I was in Bali when I checked my messages and found something that made me pause. An email from my father. He'd figured out how to attach a video. I almost didn't watch it, but curiosity won. The video showed my father in his study, looking older than I remembered. Tired. Samantha, he said, staring into the camera awkwardly. I don't know if you'll see this, but I need to say it anyway. What we did was wrong. Your mother and I, we got so caught up in making Jessica's day perfect that we forgot about you. That's not an excuse. You are our daughter, and we failed you. Please come home, or at least let us know you're safe. I love you. I watched it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a walk on the beach. The thing was, I wasn't angry anymore. Somewhere between Tokyo and Bali, between learning calligraphy and negotiating shipping contracts, the rage had burned itself out. What remained was something clearer. The understanding that I had been complicit in my own invisibility. I'd been so busy being reliable, being easy, being the one who never caused problems, that I had let them forget I was there. But I wasn't ready to go back. Not yet. By month 8, I had landed in Barcelona. My consulting business was growing. I had a steady roster of clients, mostly small manufacturers in Asia. I'd learned to speak passable Spanish, decent Thai, and serviceable Vietnamese. I had built a life that belonged entirely to me, and then I received a message that changed everything. It came through LinkedIn of all places, from someone named Victoria, a senior buyer for a mid-sized pharmaceutical distribution company in Chicago. Samantha, I hope this message finds you well. I was given your name by a mutual contact who said you've been doing impressive work in international supply chain consultation. We've been struggling with our Asian suppliers, particularly in Vietnam and Thailand. Would you be interested in discussing a consulting contract? Your background at your previous company suggests you would be perfect for this project. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I looked at Victoria's profile. The company was called Apex Pharmaceutical Distribution, a competitor to my old employer, but smaller, more nimble, expanding aggressively. I wrote back. I would be interested in learning more. I am currently based in Europe, but available for video consultations. What timeline are you working with? Her response came within an hour. How does tomorrow work? 2 p.m. Central Time. The video call happened in a co-working space in Barcelona. Victoria appeared on my screen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, steel gray hair, and no-nonsense demeanor. Let me be direct, she said after brief introductions. We are bleeding money on our Asian supply chain. Delayed shipments, quality issues, paying too much for freight. I've heard you managed to cut shipping costs by 30% for 3 different clients in the last 6 months, while improving delivery times. How? I walked her through my methodology. Relationship building, understanding regional logistics, negotiating as a partner, quality control systems that respected local practices. She listened intently, occasionally asking sharp questions that proved she knew the industry well. I'll be honest with you, Samantha, she said when I finished. I've been in this business 28 years. Most consultants talk a good game, but can't deliver. You sound like you actually know what you're doing. I want to offer you a 6-month contract. Remote work, but you'd need to travel to our supplier sites periodically. The pay is substantial. She named a figure that made my heart skip. It was more than I'd made in a year at my old job. I need to think about it, I said, keeping my voice steady. Of course, but I need an answer by Friday. We're losing ground to competitors, and I need someone who can move fast. After the call, I sat in that co-working space for 2 hours. This was a real opportunity, not just a collection of small consulting gigs, but a legitimate contract with a growing company. It would mean structure, stability, and validation for everything I'd built. It would also mean emerging from my self-imposed exile. I thought about my family, about the messages I'd been ignoring. 8 months gone, and they still had no idea where I was or what I was doing. Part of me wanted to stay hidden forever, to keep building this new life where no one knew me as the forgettable middle child. But another part, the part that had grown stronger with each country visited and each deal closed, knew that real growth meant eventually facing what I had left behind. Not because I owed them anything, but because I owed myself the satisfaction of showing them exactly who I had become. I sent Victoria an email. I accept your offer. When do we start? Her response was immediate. Monday. Welcome to Apex. Over the weekend, I began the process of returning to the visible world. I turned my phone on fully for the first time in months. The cascade of notifications was overwhelming. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, emails. I ignored all of them for now. Instead, I updated my LinkedIn profile with my new title, International Supply Chain Consultant, Apex Pharmaceutical Distribution. I added details about my consulting work over the past months, carefully professional, but clearly successful. Then, I posted a single update. Excited to announce I am joining Apex Pharmaceutical Distribution as a consultant, helping optimize international supply chains. Looking forward to this next chapter. I knew it would detonate like a bomb in my family's world. They had no idea where I'd been or what I'd been doing. Now they would see that not only was I fine, I was thriving. My phone started ringing within 10 minutes. Jessica. I let it ring. Then Mom. Then Danny. I ignored them all. Instead, I spent the evening preparing for my new role. Victoria had sent over files detailing Apex's current supply chain challenges. As I reviewed them, I realized something that made me smile. One of their biggest competitors, the company eating their lunch in the Asian markets, was my old employer, the pharmaceutical distribution company where I had worked for 6 years, where I had been reliable, quiet, easily overlooked Samantha. And now I was being hired specifically to help Apex beat them. The irony was delicious. On Sunday evening, I finally opened the messages from my family. Months of worry, guilt, anger, confusion, and eventual desperate pleading. I read every single one, feeling nothing but a distant sort of pity. Then I composed a single message to the family group chat. Hi everyone, I'm fine. I've been traveling and working. Sorry for the silence. I'll be in touch soon. Simple, unapologetic, offering no explanations. Jessica tried calling immediately. I declined the call and sent a text. Not ready to talk yet, but I'm okay. The next morning, I started my new job. Victoria set up meetings with Apex's executive team. I presented my initial assessment of their supply chain problems and my proposed solutions. They listened with the kind of attention I had never received at my old job. The CEO, a sharp businessman named Gregory, nodded throughout my presentation. This is exactly what we needed. Welcome aboard, Samantha. I think you're going to help us change the game. I smiled. That's the plan. My first major project for Apex took me back to Vietnam, where I had connections with manufacturers that my old company had repeatedly failed to cultivate properly. I flew from Barcelona to Ho Chi Minh City with a clear mandate: establish reliable partnerships with 3 key suppliers and negotiate contracts that would give Apex a significant advantage. The trip was a success beyond even Victoria's expectations. Using the relationships I had built during my travels, I secured exclusive agreements with 2 suppliers who had previously worked with my former employer but had grown frustrated with their rigid, impersonal approach. The third supplier was a new contact, a family-run operation producing high-quality pharmaceutical packaging that exceeded U.S. standards while costing 40% less. When I returned to Barcelona and presented the contracts in a video conference, Gregory actually stood up and applauded. Samantha, in 3 weeks, you have accomplished what our previous consultant could not do in 6 months. These contracts alone will save us close to $2 million annually while improving quality. Outstanding work. Victoria smiled, something I had learned she didn't do often. I knew you were the right choice. The executive team wants to discuss expanding your role. Are you available for a call tomorrow? That night, I finally called my family. Not because I felt obligated, but because I was ready. My mother answered on the first ring. Samantha! Oh my God, Samantha, is that really you? Hi, Mom. Where are you? What have you been doing? We've been so worried, you can't imagine. I'm in Barcelona, I said calmly. I've been traveling and working. I'm a consultant now. International supply chain management. There was a stunned silence. You've been in Europe for how long? Her voice climbed an octave. About 9 months total. Asia before that. 9 months. You've been gone for 9 months? And you didn't think to tell us where you were. You didn't think to tell me I wasn't invited to Jessica's wedding until 3 weeks before, I said pleasantly. I figured we were even. Another silence. This one longer and more uncomfortable. Samantha, that's not fair. We apologized for that. It was a terrible mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Mom. Mistakes are accidental. You had a list of people to book flights and hotels for, and my name wasn't on it. That was a choice. Your sister has been devastated. Has she? I asked, because when I looked at the wedding photos, everyone seemed pretty happy. No one looked like they were missing anything. We need to talk about this as a family, Mom said, her voice taking on that familiar tone of maternal authority. When are you coming home? I'm not sure yet. My work is here right now. What work? You had a perfectly good job in Denver. I quit that job. I have a new one now. A better one. I could practically hear her struggling to process this. Her reliable, predictable daughter had vanished for 9 months and returned as someone unrecognizable. I want to talk to you about this properly, she said finally, face to face. Can you at least video call so we can see you? Maybe later this week. I have to go, Mom. Work calls. Samantha, wait. I hung up. It felt surprisingly good. The next call was worse. Jessica! Tried the guilt approach immediately. Sam, I can't believe you just disappeared like that. Do you have any idea what that did to me? On my wedding day, knowing my sister was out there somewhere, angry at me. Did it ruin your day? I asked. What? No, but... Then I guess everything worked out fine. That's cruel, Sam. That's not like you. Maybe you don't know what I'm like, I said. Maybe nobody does. We grew up together. I'm your sister. Sisters remember to invite each other to their weddings. Jessica was crying now. It wasn't my fault. Mom and Dad were handling the travel. I trusted them to take care of it. You trusted them to take care of everything except checking if your sister was actually invited. That says something, Jessica. I'm sorry. How many times do I have to say it? I'm not angry anymore, I said honestly. I'm just done being invisible. You were never invisible to me. I was. I'm the boring one. Remember? The one without the architecture career or the perfect wedding or the interesting life. Just reliable old Sam who you could forget about because she would always be there anyway. That's not true. Then tell me, Jessica, when was the last time you asked me about my life? About what I wanted, what I was doing, what mattered to me? The silence stretched out. She couldn't answer. Because she couldn't remember, because it had never happened. I have to go, I said. Congratulations on your marriage. I hope you're very happy. I hung up before she could respond. Danny tried a different approach. Anger. What the hell, Sam? You just vanished for 9 months. Do you know how crazy that made everyone? Dad thought you might be dead. I sent a message saying I was fine. 1 message in 9 months? That's insane. Is it? Or is it about as much attention as I usually get from this family? Oh, come on. You're not going to play the victim card here. You're the one who ghosted everyone. After being ghosted first, I pointed out. Seems fair. You're being childish. Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally standing up for myself. Did you ever think of that? Standing up for yourself by running away to Europe. Barcelona, specifically. And I didn't run away. I left. There's a difference. Whatever. When are you coming back? I don't know. Why does everyone keep asking me that? Because you live here. You have a family here. I have a job in Barcelona and clients in Asia. This is where my life is now. Danny made an exasperated sound. You can't just decide to live in Spain, Sam. That's not how life works. Actually, it is exactly how life works. When you're an adult with money and skills, you go where you want. You do what you want. You stop waiting for permission from people who barely notice you exist. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let me ask you something, Danny. When was my birthday? Silence. You don't know, do you? Of course I know. What day, Danny? More silence. It was 3 months ago. Not one of you remembered. Not Mom, not Dad, not Jessica, and definitely not you. I turned 28 years old in Bangkok, completely alone, and my family didn't even notice. So forgive me if I'm not rushing back to Denver for a reunion. After those calls, I muted the family group chat and focused on my work. Victoria had been serious about expanding my role. Within 2 weeks, I was officially promoted to senior consultant with a significant raise and equity options in Apex. My territory now included not just Southeast Asia, but also Eastern Europe. I moved from Barcelona to Prague, a city I'd never visited but immediately fell in love with. My consulting work was thriving. I had developed a reputation as someone who could navigate complex international partnerships. Offers started coming in from other companies, but I stayed loyal to Apex. They had taken a chance on me when I was still building my credibility, and Victoria had become something of a mentor. Meanwhile, my family's messages had evolved from guilt-tripping to attempted manipulation. Mom sent long emails about how Dad's health was suffering from the stress of my absence. Jessica forwarded articles about the importance of family forgiveness. Danny tried the buddy approach, sending memes and jokes. I responded occasionally, brief messages confirming I was alive and well. Nothing more. Then, 6 weeks into my Prague residency, I got a call from Victoria that changed everything. Samantha, we need to talk about something sensitive, she said. I'm sending you an encrypted file. Look at it and call me back. The file contained internal documents from my former employer in Denver. Somehow, Apex had obtained details of their new expansion strategy, and it was aggressive. They were planning to undercut Apex's pricing in every major market, using what appeared to be insider knowledge of Apex's cost structures. How did they get this information? I asked when I called Victoria back. We think they have someone on the inside. Someone who knows our contracts and pricing. She paused. Samantha, I need to ask you directly. You worked there for 6 years. Did you sign a non-compete? No, I was just an analyst. They didn't consider me important enough for a non-compete. And you've had no contact with anyone there since you left? None. I quit without notice and disappeared. Remember? Victoria was quiet for a moment. The timeline matches up. They started getting aggressive right around when you would have been in Southeast Asia establishing our new supplier relationships. My mind raced. You think they're copying my strategy? How would they even know what I was doing? That's what we need to find out. Can you think of anyone there who might have tracked your movements? Anyone who knew about your new position? I thought back to my old office, to the people I'd worked with for 6 years. Most of them had barely noticed when I left. But there was one person who might have paid attention. There was someone, I said slowly. Trevor. He was in my department, always competitive, always looking for an edge. We worked on several projects together. He knew my methods. Is he still there? As far as I know. Let me check. I logged into LinkedIn for the first time in weeks. Trevor's profile showed he was still at my former employer, but he'd been promoted. He was now the director of international supply chain strategy. My job, the promotion I should have gotten, the one I'd been quietly working toward for 6 years. Victoria, I said, he has my old job. Or rather, the job I should have gotten. Send me his information. We need to figure out if he's tracking your work. Over the next week, Victoria's team investigated. What they found was both flattering and infuriating. Trevor had indeed been monitoring my LinkedIn profile, my consulting activities, and even my travel patterns. He had been using my success as a roadmap, following 3 months behind, approaching the same suppliers I had worked with, and trying to undercut the relationships I had built. But he wasn't as good at it as I was. He lacked the cultural sensitivity, the patience, the genuine relationship-building skills. Most of the suppliers he approached had rejected his offers or given him minimal access, remaining loyal to the partnerships I had established. Still, his attempts were causing problems. We need to shut this down, Victoria said during our strategy call. Samantha, I know this is asking a lot, but would you be willing to go back to Denver? Apex wants to open a United States regional office, and we think your presence there would send a strong message. Plus, you could directly counter whatever Trevor is doing. I thought about it. Denver. Home. The place I had fled from a year ago. When? I asked. 3 months. That gives you time to finish your Eastern Europe projects and transition them to someone else. We want you focused on the United States market and directly competing with your old company. They'll realize I'm specifically targeting them. Good. Let them realize it. You are better at this than anyone they have, and it's time they knew it. After the call, I sat in my Prague apartment, looking out over the city lights. A year ago, I had been invisible, forgotten, left behind. Now I was being asked to return as a strategic weapon. The irony was almost too perfect. I called my mother. It was time. Mom, I'm coming back to Denver. The sound she made was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Really? Oh, Samantha, I'm so glad. When? 3 months. For work. Apex is opening a regional office there, and I'll be running it. You'll be running an office? But I thought you were just consulting. I was. Now I'm being promoted to regional director. It's a significant position. I didn't know you were doing so well. You didn't ask. There was a pause. You're right. I didn't. I'm sorry for that, sweetheart. Truly. And surprisingly, I did believe her. But I'm not coming back to be the old Samantha. That person doesn't exist anymore. I'm coming back on my own terms, with my own life, my own career. If you and Dad and Jessica and Danny want to be part of that life, you'll need to accept it. Of course we will. We just want you back in our lives. We'll see, I said. I'll let you know when I land. The 3 months passed quickly. I wrapped up my Eastern European projects, trained my replacement, and prepared for the move. Apex had leased office space in a new building downtown. Sleek and modern, nothing like my old office. They had given me a generous budget to hire a small team and the authority to make strategic decisions independently. I wasn't just returning to Denver. I was returning as someone who mattered. The night before my flight, I had one last video call with Victoria. Samantha, I want you to know something, she said. When I first reached out to you a year ago, I was taking a risk. You had no official consulting experience, just some projects you had cobbled together while traveling. But something told me you were special. You proved me right beyond my wildest expectations. Thank you. That means a lot. This new position, it's not just about competing with your old employer. We're betting on you to build something significant. Apex wants to dominate the pharmaceutical distribution market in the United States within 5 years. You're going to help us do that. No pressure then, I said with a smile. She laughed. You thrive under pressure. That's why we hired you. One more thing, though. Your old employer knows you're coming. Word has gotten out. Expect them to react. Let them react. I'm ready. I landed in Denver on a crisp October afternoon, exactly 1 year and 1 month after I had left. The city looked the same, but I felt completely different. I checked into a hotel. Apex was paying for temporary housing, and spent the evening unpacking and preparing for my first day. I didn't contact my family yet. That could wait. The Apex regional office was on the 14th floor of a building in the Lodo district. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the mountains. My office had my name on the door, Samantha, Regional Director. I stood in the doorway for a moment, taking it in. A year ago, I had been an analyst in a cubicle, easily forgotten. Now I had an office with my name on it and a team to build. My first hire was critical. I needed someone who understood the local market, but wasn't tied to any of the existing players. I spent 2 weeks interviewing candidates, and I found her, Patricia. Not my old supervisor. Different Patricia. This Patricia was a former operations manager at a medical device company. Sharp and ambitious. Exactly what I needed. "I'll be honest," she said during her interview, a glint in her eye. "I know who you are. I know you used to work at the company we're competing against. That makes this interesting." "Interesting how?" I asked. "Because everyone in the industry is talking about you. The analyst who disappeared and came back as a consultant, who built a reputation in Asia faster than anyone thought possible, and who is now being positioned to take on her former employer. It's a great story." "It's not a story. It's my life." "Even better," Patricia said with a grin. "I want to be part of it. When do I start?" She started the following Monday. Together, we began building the operation. 2 more hires followed, a logistics coordinator and a business analyst. Small team, but effective. Meanwhile, my family was becoming persistent. They knew I was back in Denver. I had posted about my new position on LinkedIn, but I hadn't reached out. Finally, after 2 weeks, I agreed to have dinner with them. Not at home, but at a restaurant. Mom, Dad, Jessica with her husband Brandon, and Danny. They looked older, more tired, or maybe I was just seeing them clearly for the first time. The dinner started awkwardly, everyone trying too hard to be normal, to pretend the last year hadn't happened. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "Samantha, we owe you an apology. A real one. What we did, leaving you out of Jessica's wedding, it was unforgivable. We got caught up in the excitement and the planning, and we forgot the most important thing, you." "We didn't forget her," Mom interjected. We forgot her," Dad said firmly. "Let's be honest. Samantha has always been the easy child. The one who didn't need attention, who didn't demand the spotlight. And we took advantage of that. We let her slip into the background because it was convenient. I'm sorry." Jessica was crying quietly. Danny stared at his plate. "You deserved better from us. If you'll give us a chance, we want to do better." I looked at each of them. My family. The people who had shaped me, forgotten me, and inadvertently pushed me toward becoming someone stronger. "I appreciate that," I said carefully, "but I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person who left. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need to be included in family events to feel valued. I have built a life that matters to me, with or without you in it." "We understand," Mom said quickly. "We just want to be in your life, whatever that looks like." "Then you need to accept that my life is here in Denver, but also in Prague and Bangkok and wherever my work takes me. You need to accept that I am successful and independent. You need to stop treating me like reliable, boring Samantha who exists to make everyone else comfortable." "We never thought you were boring," Jessica said, her voice thick with tears. I looked at her. "My sister, who I had once idolized. Yes, you did. You all did. But that's okay. It taught me something important." "What?" Danny asked, finally looking up. "That being forgotten can be the greatest gift. It forced me to find out who I was without you. And I like who I found." The dinner ended with tentative plans to stay in touch. I promised to come to Sunday dinners, occasionally. They promised to actually remember my birthday next year. Small steps, towards something that might eventually resemble a healthy relationship. But I wasn't holding my breath. The real test came 2 weeks later when Trevor reached out. His message on LinkedIn was brief. Heard you were back in town. We should grab coffee. Would love to hear about your travels. I stared at the message for a long time. He had been following my work, copying my strategies, trying to benefit from my success, while I had been invisible to him when we worked in the same office. I replied, "Sure. How about Tuesday at 10 o'clock? He suggested a coffee shop near my old office. I countered with one near my new office. He agreed. It was time to remind everyone exactly who had taught them their best moves. Trevor looked exactly as I remembered. Confident, polished, the kind of person who had always been noticed while I had faded into the background. He stood when I entered the coffee shop, flashing the charming smile that had probably helped him secure that promotion. "Samantha, you look great. Europe clearly agreed with you." "It did," I said, shaking his hand briefly before sitting down. We ordered coffee, made small talk about Denver's growth, the weather. Nothing substantive. He was circling, trying to figure out how to approach what he really wanted to discuss. Finally, he leaned forward. "I have to say, I've been following your work. Very impressive what you've done in such a short time. That Vietnam deal everyone is talking about. Brilliant. Thank you. You were always good at the detail work. I remember when we worked together on that Thailand project. You had such a methodical approach." I smiled slightly. "I remember that project. You presented my analysis to the executives and took credit for it." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. That was just how things worked back then. Team effort, you know. "Of course." I sipped my coffee. "So, why did you want to meet?" Trevor relaxed, thinking he had successfully glossed over the past. "I wanted to pick your brain about the Asian markets. We're expanding there. And honestly, we could use some insights from someone who has been on the ground. You want me to help my competitor?" "We don't have to be competitors. There's room for multiple players in this market. Maybe we could even collaborate on some projects." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "Trevor, you have been following my LinkedIn profile for a year. You have been approaching the same suppliers I cultivated, using the same strategies I developed, trying to replicate my success. And now you want to collaborate." His face went through several expressions before settling on defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. The question is, why? You got the promotion I should have had. You're in the position I worked toward for 6 years. Why are you so interested in what I'm doing?" He was quiet for a moment, and I saw something flicker across his face. Not guilt, envy. "Because you're good at this," he said finally. "Better than me, maybe. You always were. You see things other people miss. You build relationships that last. And now you're with Apex, and they're beating us in every market you touch. And whose fault is that? I didn't force you to leave." "No, you just made sure I stayed invisible long enough that leaving was the only option." Trevor leaned back. "What do you want me to say, Samantha? That I'm sorry? That I wish things had been different?" "I don't want you to say anything. I wanted you to know that I know exactly what you have been doing, and it has not worked. The suppliers you approached, they told me about your offers. They laughed about how poorly you understood their business cultures, how you tried to strong-arm deals instead of building partnerships." His jaw tightened. "We're doing fine. You're hemorrhaging market share to Apex. In 6 months, we've captured 15% of the pharmaceutical distribution market in Southeast Asia. Your company has dropped by 12% in the same period. Those numbers are public, Trevor. Anyone can see them. So you came back here to gloat?" "No, I came back here to finish what I started." I stood up. Trevor looked up at me, and for the first time in all the years I had known him, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. "Enjoy your coffee," I said. "And Trevor, stop following my LinkedIn profile. It's a little pathetic." I walked out without looking back. That evening, I had a video call with Victoria. She was smiling before I even said anything. I heard about your meeting with Trevor. How did you? The industry is smaller than you think, and people talk. Especially when someone shuts down the competition's golden boy in public. Well done. I just told him the truth, which is exactly what he needed to hear. Samantha, I have news. The executive team has been reviewing the quarterly projections, and your impact on our growth cannot be overstated. We want to expand your role again. Already, you have exceeded every target we set. Gregory wants to make you Vice President of International Operations. You would oversee all of our global supply chain initiatives, not just the United States region. I sat down slowly. Vice President, a title that would have taken me decades to achieve at my old company, if ever. I had been back in Denver for less than 2 months. That's substantial. You've earned it. The board meeting is next week. They want you to present your strategy for the next 2 years. Show them what you showed us in Vietnam and Prague. Convince them that you can scale that success globally. After the call, I sat in my apartment looking out at the Denver skyline. A year ago, I had left the city feeling worthless, forgotten, invisible. Now, I was being offered a vice presidency at a company that actually valued my work. But I wasn't done yet. The board presentation was scheduled for the following Thursday. I spent a week preparing, pulling together data, projections, case studies. Patricia helped me refine the presentation. You need to show them you're not just good at tactics, she said. You need to prove you think strategically, that you understand the big picture. She was right. I restructured the presentation to tell a story, where Apex was now, where the market was heading, and how. My approach could position them to dominate in 5 years. The night before the presentation, my mother called. Sweetheart, I wanted to tell you how proud I am. Jessica mentioned she saw something on LinkedIn about a promotion. Potentially. I have a board presentation tomorrow. That's wonderful. What will you be presenting? I found myself actually explaining it to her, walking through my strategy, my vision. She listened, asking occasional questions that showed she was genuinely trying to understand. Samantha, I had no idea you were doing work at this level. This is remarkable. It's what I've been building toward. I know I've said this before, but I really am sorry we didn't see it. We didn't see you. You were always there, always reliable, and we took that for granted. You did. Can I come to Denver next month? Just me, not the whole family. I'd like to take you to dinner and actually talk, really talk, about your life, your work, everything we missed. I considered it. Maybe. Let me get through this presentation first. Of course. Good luck tomorrow, honey. Not that you need it. I have a feeling you're going to impress everyone. The presentation was at 9 a.m. in Apex's Chicago headquarters. I flew in the night before, rehearsed one final time, and arrived at 8:30. Gregory greeted me personally. Nervous. Focused, I said. Good answer. The board is tough, but fair. Show them what you have shown us, and you'll be fine. The boardroom was intimidating. Long table, leather chairs, 7 board members, plus Gregory and Victoria. They looked at me with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. I was young for a vice president position. I had been with the company less than a year. I understood their doubts. I began with the Vietnam case study, walking them through how I had identified the opportunity, built the relationships, and secured contracts that were now saving Apex millions annually. Then I moved to Prague, to the Eastern European partnerships that were opening new markets. This is impressive work, one board member said, but it's one thing to succeed in specific projects. Can you scale this approach across all international operations? I advanced to my next slide, a global map showing target markets, potential partners I had already identified, and projected growth rates for each region. Yes, I said simply, here's how. I spent the next 30 minutes detailing my strategy, identifying underserved markets, building local partnerships rather than imposing corporate mandates, respecting cultural differences while maintaining quality standards, creating a network of consultants and regional managers who understood both local contexts and global logistics. The key, I said, is recognizing that international supply chain management is not about controlling everything centrally. It is about building trust in each region and connecting those relationships into a coherent network. My competitors, including my former employer, keep failing because they try to force a one-size-fits-all approach. We will succeed because we adapt. Another board member leaned forward. You keep referring to your former employer. Are you proposing we specifically target them? I am proposing we operate so effectively that they become irrelevant. If that involves directly competing for their market share, then yes, that is aggressive. That is business. Gregory was smiling. Victoria looked satisfied. The board members exchanged glances, and I saw the shift happening. I had won them over. The board chair, an elegant woman in her 60s named Diane, spoke. Miss Samantha, you left your previous employer a year ago. You spent that year traveling, building skills, establishing relationships. Can you tell us why you chose Apex when you could have gone anywhere? I thought about it. Victoria took a chance on me when I was unproven. She saw potential when others would have seen a resume gap and questionable decisions. Apex gave me room to succeed or fail on my own merits. That is rare. That is valuable. And that is worth building something exceptional for. Diane nodded slowly. One more question. What do you want to achieve here? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I want to make Apex the dominant player in international pharmaceutical distribution. I want to build something that lasts, that matters. And in 5 years, I want to look back and know that I turned potential into reality. Thank you. We will deliberate and let you know our decision. I left the boardroom and waited in Gregory's office. Victoria joined me. That was one of the best presentations I have ever seen, she said. You have nothing to worry about. 20 minutes later, Gregory returned, grinning. Congratulations, Madam Vice President. You start immediately. The promotion was announced company-wide that afternoon. My LinkedIn profile updated automatically. Within hours, messages poured in. Congratulations from colleagues, connection requests from competitors, and one particularly interesting message from my old company CEO, Samantha. Congratulations on your new role. I wish we had recognized your talents when you were with us. If you are ever interested in discussing opportunities, my door is open. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. They had their chance. Over the next 3 months, I built my team and implemented my strategy. Patricia transferred to Chicago to serve as my director of operations. We hired regional managers for Asia, Europe, and Latin America. I traveled constantly, visiting suppliers, negotiating contracts, building the network I had envisioned. And slowly, methodically, we dismantled my former employer's competitive advantages. Every supplier they had taken for granted, we courted. Every market they had ignored, we entered. Every relationship they had damaged through arrogance, we repaired. It was not about revenge anymore. It was about doing the work better than anyone else. The results spoke for themselves. Within 6 months of my promotion, Apex had captured 28% of the international pharmaceutical distribution market. My former employer had dropped to 18%. Their stock price declined. Their board fired their CEO, and Trevor lost his job. I learned about it through LinkedIn, where his profile quietly changed to seeking new opportunities. Part of me felt satisfied. A larger part felt nothing at all. He was no longer relevant to my story. My family had slowly worked their way back into my life. Sunday dinners became a regular occurrence, though I maintained clear boundaries. I shared details about my work when I wanted to, deflected when I didn't. They were learning to see me as I actually was, not as they had assumed. Jessica and I had coffee one afternoon, just the two of us. I've been thinking a lot about what you said she began, about how I never asked about your life. You were right. I was so focused on my career, my wedding, my life, that I never considered yours. I know. I want to do better. Can you tell me about your work? Really? Tell me. Not just the LinkedIn version. So I did. I told her about Vietnam, about learning to negotiate in different cultures, about the satisfaction of building something from nothing. She listened, really listened, asking questions that showed genuine interest. You know what's funny, she said when I finished. I always thought I was the successful sister, the one with impressive career and perfect life. But you have built something I never could. You took a massive risk, reinvented yourself, and came back stronger. I'm actually jealous. Don't be, I said. You have your path. I have mine. They don't have to compete. When did you get so wise? I smiled. Somewhere between Bangkok and Barcelona. A year and a half after I had disappeared from my family's life, I stood in Apex's Chicago headquarters, looking at the quarterly projections. We had just closed the biggest deal in company history, an exclusive partnership with a manufacturing consortium in India that would supply 30% of the United States pharmaceutical market. Gregory called me into his office. Samantha, the board wants to offer you a seat. You would be the youngest board member in Apex's history. I accepted. That evening, I took myself to dinner at a nice restaurant. No family, no colleagues, just me. I ordered wine, a perfect steak, and dessert. I sat there savoring every bite, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. 2 years ago, I had been invisible, forgotten, left behind. Today, I was a board member of a major pharmaceutical distribution company, overseeing international operations across 4 continents, earning more money than I had ever imagined possible. But more than that, I had become someone I respected, someone who didn't wait for permission or validation, someone who built her own path when the old one disappeared. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Saw the news about the board appointment. So proud of you, sweetheart. Sunday dinner to celebrate. I smiled and typed back, maybe. I have a flight to Singapore on Monday. Let me check my schedule. Because that was my life now. International flights, board meetings, strategic decisions that affected thousands of people, and a family that had finally learned I was worth remembering. In the months that followed, the consequences for those who had overlooked me became painfully clear. Trevor never recovered his career momentum, taking a junior position at a much smaller firm where he remained stuck for years, always wondering what could have been. My former employer continued to hemorrhage market share, eventually being acquired by a competitor at a fraction of their former valuation. The executive team that had passed me over for promotions found themselves explaining to shareholders how they had lost the industry's most valuable strategist. Jessica's perfect life revealed cracks. Her marriage struggled, and she often called me for advice, finally seeing me as someone worth consulting. My parents, humbled by how close they had come to losing me entirely, made genuine efforts to understand my life, though they would never fully comprehend the depth of what their neglect had cost me. As I sit in my Chicago office now, watching planes take off toward destinations I will visit next week, I realize that the greatest revenge was not their downfall, but my rise. They forgot me, and in that forgetting, they freed me to become extraordinary. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were being overlooked, and it propelled you to make a massive change? I'm genuinely curious to hear your stories. Let me know in the comments below.